City Girl, and welcome to Haydn Behind the Music Stand. I'm your host, Patty Ryan, and with me is one of my best Judies, Alejandro Duque, who is the acting assistant principal violist of the Milwaukee Symphony. During the summer, he has performed at Lakes Area Music Festival and Sunset Chamber Fest, and we'll be talking about film and cinema. Welcome, Alejandro. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for having me.
Yay! I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for so long, so I'm so excited that you're finally here.
Finally.
So you are one of my longest best friends ever. We obviously met in Los Angeles at USC, Thornton School of Music, and we were put into this freshman string quartet together, and it was just this amazing group of people. It was Kyla Moffitt, Michelle Black, and you and me. I feel like that's also where I started to learn more about chamber music, because you had come from Idlewild and had all this chamber music experience, and I was always like, oh my god, what is matching vibrato? Like, what do you have to do that? I didn't even know that was a thing, stuff like that. So you just kept inviting me to go hang out with you all the time. And I feel
really
like
tried to push you out of your shell.
And I feel like some of my best friends in my life are the people that have done that to me. So I'm always forever grateful for those people in my life.
Oh, I definitely was very grateful for having that knowledge that I got from Idlewild, because I felt like it made my first years at USC as a musician go by much more smoothly. But yeah, I mean, our quartet was great. It was the best thing that could have happened for me as a new young college guy who was just not knowing what he was doing. But yeah, it was like such a good group of personalities, and we really worked well together. And I mean, we were all kind of trying to get by, but we were doing it with fun, and I think that was what made it important. Doing it with fun and like excitement and ready to tackle on each project.
And I think that there's something really special about that period of our time in our lives where we're really trying to figure ourselves out and figure out our own voices, and doing so in a string quartet situation was a really great way for us to really feel trusted and getting to know each other. This actually just sparked a memory in my brain about, I notoriously don't like celebrating my birthday. I don't usually like my birthday.
Which we quickly learned the first year.
Who actually learned about how did you find out about my birthday, Alejandro?
Maybe I shouldn't be saying this for everyone to hear, but
okay.
I worked at the admissions office for the music school there.
And you looked up my file.
Patty refused to let us know when her birthday was, and I just thought it would be fun, which now, looking back, maybe it was a bad idea, but... to look up your file just quickly, because, we had a file of all the music students just to see what your birth date was. And I found out that, can I say, it was on tax day.
Hey!
So,
okay.
easy to remember. And obviously I had to tell our quartet members. And so we thought it would be a good idea to surprise you, not knowing your history with birthdays at all. And so it
was very sweet.
Got an ice cream cake at, I think, Baskin Robbins or a Cold Stone or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. And
I was like the most ungrateful person.
Yeah, we come out surprising you with this cake and singing happy birthday. And you're just like so embarrassed, and you're just like putting your head down and not wanting to do anything with it.
Sorry.
And we've made fun of you every year since then. We would always be like, oh, should we get Patty an ice cream cake this year?
Right. Yeah, I feel like I've grown a lot since that time in my life too. Yeah. So
But sorry for doing that without,
Well, it's okay.
Knowing the situation.
Well, and also I've come to terms with the past birthday experiences of my life, so I'm happy to celebrate it now. Let's put it that way.
Yay.
Anyway, truly, I feel like you're one of those people that really knows me so internally and loves me for who I am, and I'm just very grateful. And I'm doing the same.
Likewise.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. The same. Yeah, right back at you.
Yay. Okay. Ollie, can you tell me about your most insane performance story?
Oh, well, one that I immediately think of was back at USC. Oh, which year was it? Freshman year?
I think it was our freshman year, if this is the story I'm thinking of.
Yeah. John Williams came to guest conduct a whole program of his music. And there's this sort of thrill to being in LA, especially as a musician, because everyone goes through LA at some point in their life.
Right. Just like New York. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So John Williams was someone who I'd looked up to for a long time. And the fact that he was going there, like my first year at USC, I was just so thrilled. And comes to the dress rehearsal, because obviously he doesn't have time to do all the rehearsals prior to that. So it's just dress rehearsal and then the concert. He was incredible. I mean, he was just so gracious and humble, and actually a really great conductor too. He's just very clear, very concise, and just gets everything done right away. Yeah, it was a great experience working with him. But then the concert itself, I was not prepared for it. I felt like the crowd was insane.
Yeah.
It was packed to the brim, and it felt like I was at one of those like Beatles concerts that you see pictures of from like when they did their first tour in America. They were just like yelling their hearts out, and it was so exhilarating. Looking back on that, it makes me think about the concert experience in regards to classical music and how we kind of need to bring that energy back into the concert hall. There's this like unspoken etiquette that I feel like hinders your feelings. Like you're supposed to contain what you feel. And I understand being quiet to listen to Mahler 3 or whatnot, but I think there are other pieces where it should be okay to show your joy or excitement or sadness without feeling like you're disrupting the experience for others. It should be like a community feeling, a community experience, so you should be able to feel things together too. Anyway, with the John Williams concert, it was one of those rare experiences in the classical world where it felt so validating to be there on stage, because you could see the pure excitement and you could hear it too.
People dressed up too. I don't know if you remember that. I was in the orchestra as well, and I remember looking up and seeing lights in the back row, like fluorescent neon glow sticks and things like that. And I was like, whoa, like when does that ever happen at a classical music concert? But of course, with John Williams, people are so excited to see the man who created such iconic film music. And for us, like, we are so excited, as you were saying, to be under his baton and playing his own music. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I wonder if audiences knew what they were getting into, because I feel like the reason we don't see as many young people coming into the concert halls is because they're not sure what they're getting themselves into, and they don't know how they're supposed to act while going to the concert. It kind of deters them. So I just feel like if we create a more welcoming space where they're able to enjoy it however they want, it could create more of an interest in what we do.
Right. And less sort of this intimidating, oh, you must sit quiet and not express yourself atmosphere, versus like a rock concert where that's literally what you do. You're dancing, you're screaming, you're singing, you're, you know, in the moment.
Yeah. And, you know, all that being said, there's like a time and place for, you know, but orchestras could definitely evolve and open up the boundaries that they've created for themselves.
Well, I didn't expect such a profound answer or resolve from your insane performance story, but I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot that we can experiment with. And of course, part of the current concert-going etiquette is in respect for the audience members listening and also for the musicians performing to not have many, as you say, disruptions. But at the same time, as you say, there's a little more nuance to just only being still and listening and then you can't do anything, versus actually feeling and responding to each other from performer to audience and audience to performer. So anyway, that's probably a conversation for that can be evolved continuously. Sure. Yeah. Well, can I transition to mentioning that you are an integral part of Sushi's adoption story?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I know that you personally don't have any pets, but I always call you Sushi's godfather because you were there with me when I literally picked her up from the animal control and swept her off her feet and brought her home. So whenever you come visit me in Minnesota, she always just is drawn straight to you and is like, oh, I remember this cat. I remember him. Like, it's Alejandro. It's my granddaddy. No, sorry, not granddaddy. My goddaddy.
I'm That's not that old yet.
So anyway,
but yes, Sushi definitely has a special place in my heart. But no, she's a cutie. Yeah. She's honestly one of the more friendlier cats that I have met. Oh. Yeah, very personable. Yeah. Yes,
she's a sweetheart. All right, Ollie, are you ready for the Spitfire questions?
Uh-oh. You know how indecisive I get, so...
I know.
We'll see how this goes.
Okay. Mahler or Bruckner?
Ooh. Oh, I love both.
It's not going well already.
Part of me wants to say Bruckner just because I know how contentious that could be. But I
Ooh.
actually really love Bruckner. His music sounds like, I don't know, I kind of like visualize like him building these like massive, beautiful cathedrals.
Versus Mahler is a little bit more in the moment.
Yes, and it just feels a lot more personal and emotional right from the get-go. But Bruckner just has this sort of awesome like build. It just kind of comes in waves. It just like climaxes and then goes back down and then goes again, maybe even bigger the next time and goes back down. And I know he's not the most favorite amongst string players because of all of the repetitive stuff that
stress
he has
injury.
And well, yeah, all the tremolos. But I love listening to him, and honestly, I like playing it too.
You know, I'm in the same boat as you. I think I would pick Bruckner as well. There's
I
just
didn't know
something
that.
about, I always think of it as contained excitement, but just like, I feel
Yeah.
like his music has a glow underneath it. And
it
probably
does.
because of the tremolo, that it
Yeah.
just, it levitates, in my opinion. Yeah. But Mahler's great too.
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
answering these questions. Not yet, at least. Okay. Debussy or Ravel?
Debussy.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Okay.
Sorry, Sushi, but I grew up with dogs my whole life. So
Yeah, they are awesome.
I also like the fact that you can train them. So
You can train cats.
well, yes, but they'll still do what they want at the end of the day.
That's also true, yeah. Okay, appetizers or dessert?
Appetizers. I'm all
Ooh.
about snacks.
Yes, you are. Actually, that's true. I joke with you all the time about how, like, when you're, like, trying to figure out dinner, you're eating a snack as you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Alejandro, you're already eating. And you're like, I know, it's not dinner.
Yeah, it's not the core of the meal. It's not the heart of the meal. Yeah.
Yeah. Sparkling or still water?
Oh, still.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's just sparkling water.
I
I don't, unless it's like mixed with something. I just I don't
Like a tonic?
I don't need that like extra like
Fizz.
sort of sensation in my mouth.
Okay. Fan favorite question: alternate universe musical instrument.
Honestly, piano, cello, voice, horn.
Horn.
Yeah, I love the horn.
Okay.
I don't know if I can choose one over the other, but if I had learned piano, I think that would have been very helpful in terms of a musician, because then you can like be able to play your own piano scores to the pieces,
Well,
to like the viola sonatas and whatnot. But
well, I'm really grateful for starting on piano myself. I feel like I conceptualize music so much more quickly because I understand how composers were composing. Because oftentimes composers are at the piano composing, and I can see the theory visually on a keyboard, and I can understand how things feel. So if I were to have a kid, I would definitely have them start on piano, even if they hated it. They can transition to something else, but I very much value that knowledge for myself too.
Which I did learn piano. I kind of like taught myself piano on an
at
electric
USC
keyboard. No, but when I was a kid, because my mom actually, I don't know, she had like 12 years of piano lessons.
Wow.
And so she had books of like piano music, and I'd get curious, and one day they gifted me an electric keyboard, and I just like spent so many hours on that thing and just started to self-teach myself, easy Beethoven and Liszt and Mozart stuff. But once viola came into my life, I didn't use the keyboard as much.
Sure. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Pandemic guilty pleasure?
Ooh, probably TV.
Yeah.
TV and video games. Yeah.
Favorite professor shout out?
Well, one that comes off the top of my head is John Largess. He's a violist in the Monroe Quartet, and I had studied with him during my master's at UT Austin, and I loved his teaching style. He left so much space for you to think of solutions and like to not feel like anything you said was, a wrong way of thinking. But he also like really had high standards as well and wouldn't let anything slip. But he always approached it from a very like intellectual standpoint and always found a way to like incorporate it into like your daily practice. So you really like understood how to take his advice and put it into your own work instead of just saying like, oh, you should do this and then just leaving it at that, Right. He's a great guy. Always such like a optimistic demeanor as well.
Yes, he's such a wonderful human. Hi, John.
I was also going to say my middle school orchestra teacher who basically opened up the world of classical music for me. Her name's Adrienne Holmes. She was my orchestra teacher for the 3 years I was in middle school. She really supported me and challenged me, and also introduced me to Tchaikovsky, which were the first symphonies that I bought on CD.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the reason why I'm here today with my career is because of her.
That's awesome. I think that those pinnacle teachers in our lives don't get enough of the spotlight of how impactful they are. Yeah.
Definitely.
Most inspired musical hero of any genre?
Ooh. Oh,
I know,
gosh.
this would be a tough one for you. Yeah. You've introduced me to so many amazing people, too. So I'm really curious what you're most inspired of the day.
Of the day, because this does change frequently. I don't want to be that basic person, but I mean, right now, oh gosh, Lady Gaga is definitely one of those.
I knew you were going to say Lady Gaga! But she is awesome. I mean, sorry, go on though.
Yeah, I mean, I admire like how many hurdles she's had to like jump just to get where she is. All the, misogyny and just trauma and health issues and then everything that she stands for and continues to stand for. She really is a really good human in my eyes from what I've seen, and really tries to make the world a better place. But on top of that, her work ethic is just insane. And just the fact that she creates all these songs, but not just that, has concepts for her videos and for her looks. Like everything in her world is just all art. Something that I really respect and admire. Even if some people aren't into pop music, I think there's something about her that anyone can find that they can relate to in some way.
I absolutely agree. I used to be a hater of Lady Gaga when she came out with her first albums because they were so new, and to me it was like in the
we were
classical music. We were in
undergrad when her first album came out.
Yeah. So I remember being kind of like, oh, this isn't music. Like, I know I'm in music school, but, over the years I've transformed myself and I've transformed my opinions of things. And I see absolutely what you say about Lady Gaga. There's so much more than just the music behind her. It's the fashion, it's the art, the pop art. It's her standing up, as you say, for things that really matter. And I don't have to keep explaining what you just said, but I absolutely agree. And that there is something for everyone with her if you just take a moment to listen.
Right. Yeah, that's it. Sometimes it just takes a moment to try to understand each other.
Oh, so profound.
You started it.
I know. Okay, fine. Most transformative performance experience?
I mean, I have a few. One that immediately comes to me is when I saw the Berlin Phil, but with Claudio Botto, who was a conductor that I absolutely adored as a kid. And it was the only time I got to see him live. It was in Berlin, and it actually turned out that I didn't get a ticket to see it because it was sold out. So I was just like, let's press our luck and just go to the hall because I want to see the Philharmonie, which is the name of the hall. So we went in. I went through to the ticket counter and asked for a ticket. They said, sorry, we're sold out, just as I had already known. But you can buy a ticket for this concert with Simon Rattle in a couple of days. So I was like, okay, fine. I definitely want to see them while I'm here. So I got that ticket. I left the line. I stood around in the lobby close to the ticket counter, just admiring the architecture. And I see that the woman in the ticket booth is calling to me to come back. So I was like, oh, what? Okay. So I go back and she's like, so we just got a couple of tickets for tonight's concert if you would like them. And I was like, yes! I was so excited. So obviously I was like, yes, I have to see Abato. And it was a program of Schubert incidental music, Rosamund, and Debussy La Mer. And I was floored. It was so emotional. I had never heard sounds so beautiful before. And it culminated with him getting like multiple callbacks from the audience because everyone there just really respected him, and it was very memorable concert.
Desert island piece of any genre?
Eine kleine Nachtmusik.
No! Sorry. Hard veto. I'm not on your island with you, Ale.
Patty, these questions are impossible. Well, I'm not going to say a viola piece because, let's be real, we can do better.
Shade. We can do better.
Just kidding. I love viola. I'd say I was gonna say a Mozart piano concerto, like 23 or 20, or Mahler 9, because
wow.
the last movement just always gets me, more so than like the Adagietto or the last movement of the Third Symphony. I don't know. Well, the Third Symphony is like neck and neck. Or the Fauré Requiem. I don't know.
Ooh.
Fauré
Speaking of
Requiem
viola.
is like a piece I would probably hear on my deathbed.
Oh my god! Oh, wait!
It's just so magical.
It is
and
so, yeah.
ethereal. And if there is a heaven, I want it to sound like that.
Oh, that warmed my heart. Oh my god, you put me through so many emotions just now. Okay. I guess you're done with the Spitfire questions.
Oh, yay. Good. Fun.
Okay, Alejandro, can you walk me through your musical origin story? You touched on it a bit in the Spitfire questions, but tell us how you came about a viola, when you decided to pursue it as your career, and all the schooling that I know about that brought you to where you are today.
Sure. So, see, music was definitely an integral part of my upbringing because my parents were active in their church choir. So both my mom and dad would like to sing, and my dad would also play guitar. I mean, this was all just amateur wanting to contribute to the church, and they liked singing. And like I had mentioned before, my mom had studied piano lessons as, a hobby. So she had piano books, and my dad had a guitar. I would play around with that, and I actually had a few lessons on guitar, but my guitar teacher had a piano, and I kept getting distracted by the piano. So she's like, why don't I just give you a couple lessons on piano? And so then I got an electric keyboard. That was like my main activity, was just messing around on the keyboard, teaching myself all of the famous tunes like Furilis and Turkish March and
Alaturka? Yeah.
Yeah. But my dad had these LPs of Beethoven symphonies and other classical works, and I was always so curious about them. He ended up buying this box set of like 100 greatest classics, and I think it was like this 5 CD set, and I would just eat those up. I would go through them so many times to the point where I was like, oh, this is this piece by this composer, and I just like caught on very quickly. So 5th grade happened, and someone came to our school with a violin playing the theme to Titanic.
Oh my god!
And then they were like, I'm starting an after-school strings program. Who wants to join? So I go back home to my parents, and I'm like, I really want to join this program. Can I please join? And to my surprise, they actually said yes. And so I was super elated. I was so ready. So I go back, and they're like, okay, which instrument do you guys want to choose? And everyone was picking violin and cello. So I was like, I'm going to do the viola because, I don't know what that is. And everyone's picking the other instrument. So.
Oh, that's kind of sweet though, that you like took under your wing the one instrument that everyone was ignoring,
Yeah. So I chose viola, and we started having, our weekly after school group lessons. And I remember we started like with some Suzuki stuff. Well, that was like after the basics. But I remember like asking, because I had like whizzed through our first books, and I was like asking for more. And so she ended up giving me some harder music that had like notations that I hadn't learned quite yet. But I just somehow, I was at that point, I was like learning things by ear and just trying to figure it out on my own. Like I had books that showed me like, they're very like instructional. So I was like trying to put the pieces together myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to learn this. And it caught on by the time I got to middle school, where Miss Adrian Holmes was my teacher. I was just like practicing every day after school, getting my hands on everything that I could. Like my favorite trips outside the home were to the music store where I could pick up new sheet music. Yeah, I was totally obsessed by that point.
Do you know why that you became obsessed, as you just said?
I'm not
like,
sure.
What was it?
I think it was just the fact that like I had a hobby that I really enjoyed and that I was actually like allowed to do, because my parents growing up, they were pretty restrictive. They were like, okay, gotta focus on school, and then gotta do your chores, They had
I relate with that a lot.
Yeah, they had 4 kids growing up, so they had a lot on their plate, and they didn't necessarily have the means to let me do everything I wanted to. to, but for some reason they allowed the viola. So I was just so grateful that
but
it
seems like
had
it was
something
kind of
to do.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. It seems like it was a safe space for you to really discover something on your own.
Yeah.
And that you were excelling very quickly. So it was compounded with this acceleration and also feeling like the space that you could create and do whatever you kind of want.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I felt very validated because I had all my teachers at that point were very supportive and wanted to see me grow and thought that I was doing a great job for where I was at that age. But yeah, so it was just like my main thing outside of school. I'd like sit in my room. I'd like record on like this like cassette recorder duos, and then I'd play them back and I'd play the second part.
Oh, that's
with
cute.
The recording.
Yeah. Early chamber music.
Yeah. But I also remember getting really excited about our orchestra doing like a arrangement of Vivaldi Four Seasons Summer. And I was like, the violin part is so much more fun than my part. And I hadn't learned treble clef on viola yet. So I just like took the part home. I knew how it sounded and I just like figured it out on my own. And
I see.
I went back and I was like, hey, Mrs. Holmes, can I play this for you? And she was just like, wow, okay, well, I'm going to start giving you more music. So she was just kind of like feeding that fire. And then there's this one class, which I alluded to before, where she played Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony for us. And she started to describe the opening clarinet solo with this passion, and I just like fed off of that, and I was like, wow, I never like listened to music this way. So of course the first thing I did is go out and find a recording of it, and I happened to pick up, not knowing anything about orchestras or conductors at the time, a recording of New York Phil with Leonard Bernstein with the Fifth and Sixth Symphonies on it. And it's still one of my, if not my favorite recording of Track 5. It's just so passionate, filled with emotions. It's a great recording. But anyway, so that kind of got me down the road of orchestras and conductors. And then because of the box set that my dad had, I started to pay attention to the orchestras and conductors that were on there. And then I started like picking favorites and seeing which ones had like more recordings. And suddenly I like found myself looking into all the recordings that had come from Berlin, because Karajan, he was the main guy. He changed the like recording industry with classical music. He also created these videos of performances that would be like very choreographed, like everyone would be sitting in these like perfect rows and tiered, and there would be like interesting camera work. And so I ended up buying a few of those concert movies, and that's basically when I was like, I want to do that. I want to be in an orchestra, because the power that they can get from all those musicians working together as one unit was just amazing to me. So I continued to study. I eventually got private lessons, and then I was put through all the like state competitions.
Which in Texas, that's a big deal too.
Yeah, the state competitions in Texas are taken pretty seriously, and I did well with them. So I ended up, my teacher put me through to a professor at UT Austin, who then told me, hey, I have this summer music festival in Idlewild, California. Would you like to come? So I did. And while I was there, they were like, would you like to audition to this boarding school program? I was like, sure. And I did. And they accepted me. And I ended up going there for my last 2 years of high school and studied with the famed violist Donald McInnes, who is now retired. And I had a great time there. It was just like music camp 24/7. That's where
an art camp too. Yeah. Like, I mean, there was other artists there, not just music.
Right. You would go there and choose your area of study. So they had music, film, dance, theater, visual arts, and they had interdisciplinary arts. So you got to like, make friends from all those disciplines, and we would go and support each other by going to each group's shows or screenings or whatnot. So yeah, it was a great and eye-opening experience into art, and made some very good friends there that I still keep in touch with to this day. But yeah, it really prepared me for college, which then I continued with that same teacher, Donald McInnes, at USC. A great musical experience. I mean, obviously it comes with its ups and downs, but I don't think I would have traded it for something else.
Oh, you better not.
Yeah, because that's where I met you.
And Michelle.
And Michelle and Kyla and Chris. Yes. And Naomi. But yeah, no, it was a great learning experience that really pushed me sometimes to to the very edge, but you sometimes need to know where that edge is. Yeah, so I was involved with some orchestras while I was there. The American Youth Symphony. I auditioned to be principal in the USC Symphony, which I was for my last 2 years there. I would go to LA Phil as often as possible. They had these great student rush tickets that were about $10, which is like,
I know,
that what
insane.
a steal. What a
Yeah.
steal. Because I don't know how it is now, but back then I was able to see so many great concerts because of that. I was just in love with orchestra. And after that, I took a little bit of a break because I kind of had a little falling out with my teacher, and that kind of affected my relationship with music for a bit. I think it was 2 years off. Yeah, 2 years off. But in that time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to audition to Tanglewood, because Tanglewood, in my eyes at the time, was like this like mecca for aspiring orchestral musicians. It's like
either that or Verbier or
right.
Yeah, like
it's like the place to go if you want to like make a name for yourself in orchestra. And I got in during my time off, and I mean, you were there with me. We were both so excited to be going there, and I had some of the best musical experiences there. Great faculty, great level of music making, and just like great concerts. Just getting to see the Boston Symphony every week. It was incredible.
Can I say, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but you even won the mock audition and performed with the BSO.
Yeah, I was definitely very grateful for that opportunity. They would have these auditions that were like mock auditions to prepare you for a real orchestra audition. And they would choose a few winners from each instrument to have one concert, 1 week, to sit in with the Boston Symphony and perform one of their concerts. And mine was the Ravel Mussorgsky Pictures at an Exhibition. I remember being so nervous before my first rehearsal, but then once I got in there, it actually was so easy because everyone knew what they were doing. Everyone knew what had to be done, and you just fit right in.
Well-oiled
machine incredible.
Is what,
exactly. That tuba solo, I still remember to this day, was so incredible. I'd never heard anything like it before. But yes, it was one of the highlights of the summer for sure, as well as the chamber coachings. I think despite that first week being kind of awful in the fact that we were having to rehearse for hours every day in unconditioned, humid 80 to 90 degree weather, I had to take multiple showers every day because we would just be drenched in sweat. But those coachings were incredible.
I mean, I've ranted about Tanglewood and how amazing that festival is so many times, and it's just proven over and over and over again. It's so dear to our hearts too, to have that experience together.
So that definitely made me more excited to be back in the circuit. So I started auditioning to grad schools again and ended up at UT Austin, where I studied with Roger Myers and John Lloyd Jess, and I got my first orchestra job while I was there in the Austin Symphony, and I continued to stay there after I finished my master's and started auditioning for orchestras, and finally landed a job here in Milwaukee.
That was one of the happiest days that I experienced. I know how hard it is to win an orchestra job.
Yeah.
And the moment that you called me or told me, I was like, I think I was driving, but I was like so excited because it was like, yay, he did it.
Yeah.
It comes true at the end. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, it was an exciting day. It was actually strange because it was a long, grueling day of auditions and waiting around. And they finally got to me after I heard them tell the person in the room next to me. And then they left without coming by my room. So I was like, oh, okay, this is weird. What's going on here?
Right.
And this was after like hours of already waiting. So it's definitely testing my patience, of course. But they finally get to me and they're like, well, we haven't made a decision yet, but we'll get back to you in 2 weeks. I was like, oh, great. It's like, okay, well, at least it's not a no. There's still a possibility it could be a yes.
Right.
And so I call up my friend. It's like, okay, I'm starving. Let's go get something to eat. They pick me up. We start to make our way over to dinner. And I get a phone call. And they say, we'd like to offer you a position in our orchestra.
Yeah!
I was like, what? And I was just like shocked because the past like 15 minutes, since they told me, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to wait 2 more weeks. And then suddenly they just changed their mind while I'm like leaving the hall.
Yeah, right.
But oh my god, it was so hard to contain my excitement. It was that kind of excitement where I just like I didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
I didn't know who to text first. I didn't know who to call. I was just like there, kind of like
stunned.
Stunned and trembling, just like I can't believe this happened. But yeah, good day. That was a good day.
Yeah. So you are acting principal of Milwaukee Symphony. What is it like now being, I think this is 4 years, about 3 to 4 years of seasons with the orchestra?
I've been here for 3 years. I'm starting my 4th.
Okay, so you're starting your 4th season.
Mm-hmm. And the past 2 years I was acting assistant.
Right.
So I won the job as a section player. And then at the end of my first year, the assistant principal announced that they were going to leave. So they had an internal audition to fill the spot, and I got that spot. And so basically there are 3 chairs, the principal, and then 2 assistants. And I'm the 3rd chair assistant. And whenever one of the front stand members leave, then I move up. Mm-hmm. And many times I have had to take the responsibilities of the principal, which can be nerve-wracking, but thankfully the experience I had sitting principal at USC and in other orchestras prepared me for that. But it's always still a nerve-wracking experience because you feel like you're much more scrutinized when you're sitting in that
hot seat.
Yeah, exactly. And having been fairly new to the orchestra, I knew it was like a sort of test to prove myself.
Okay.
But yeah, you just have to stick to what you know and go with it.
You gotta do what you know best, which is yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, Alejandro, are you ready to take a break?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, we'll
Time
be
for
right
some
back.
Snacks.
Oh! Okay, munch away. Welcome back from the break. So, as long as I've known you, Alejandro, you have had an interest in cinema and film. I even remember at least in freshman year, you were even debating about doing a dual degree or a minor or something in film. Mm-hmm. So, where did that stem from?
I didn't know at the time, but growing up, our family had movie nights. And I mean, I grew up with all of the classic Disney movies, but as I got older, my later years in elementary school, our parents would pick movies for all of us to see, and they were always classics from the 50s, 40s sometimes. Grew up watching lots of the Marx Brothers, a lot of Cary Grant movies, Katharine Hepburn, Audrey Hepburn.
Icons.
Right. And it just became one of my favorite activities to do with my family. And when I moved to Idlewild, I had a friend who also really liked movies, and she introduced me to a Swedish film by this director called Ingmar Bergman, who's a huge deal in the cinematic world. That first movie was called Fanny and Alexander, and I just remember watching it for the first time and being blown away by it because, well, first of all, I hadn't seen too many foreign films before that, and there's such a different kind of artistic expression to it that I hadn't seen before. All the movies prior to that were more centered on the plot or the characters, but this one incorporated a lot of the scenery and the colors, and I surprisingly fell in love with it, not knowing why. So after that, she and I, my friend who introduced me to this film, started going to the movie theater, the one movie theater in Idlewild, as frequently as we could, seeing whatever they were showing there, and then just having a lot of movie nights on our own. And that's when I started to delve into that universe, kind of like how I did with the classical music, starting to look into the different kinds of directors that were out there, picking up on the movies that I liked and seeing who made this, who wrote for this movie, who composed for this movie, if the music really stood out to me. And once I came to USC, I was like, oh, USC is known for their cinema program.
Film school.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I may as well try to take advantage of that while I'm here. So I enrolled into this cinematography class, and unfortunately, my teacher at the time, my viola teacher, had noticed that I was enrolled in this class and was not approving of it. I should also mention, while I was in Idlewild, Idlewild, I actually took this film scoring class because they provided it as a elective. Because in Idlewild, we couldn't take classes in the other disciplines.
Oh.
Because it didn't fit in the schedule. Our schedules were like totally filled with everything that was meant for our curriculum. And then we would have an elective. But for some reason, there was some guy who would come in once a week and teach this class of film composing. It was like him and like 4 students. It was very small. It was a very fun class. Anyway, fast forward to USC. And he had a valid reason. I mean, my professor had gotten me into that program on scholarship. And it's like his mentality was that like, if you're coming here to study this, then I want you to focus on this and not have a distraction in a different department. So I dropped that class.
Yeah. But I feel like I understand it and I respect the reasons behind it, but there's a part of me that's like, it's kind of an old school way of thinking.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
I don't
too.
agree with it. I wouldn't do it myself.
Right.
But I understood where he came from. But obviously, at that age, I don't know, what was I, 19 or something? There wasn't much I could do to persuade him otherwise. Sure. So
he did have a presence.
Yes. Anyway, that didn't stop me from watching movies. I would use the library as a resource because they had everything there. And that's when I really started to delve into all the obscure or just like art house type of cinema, just sitting in the library when I should be writing my papers and watching these movies and kind of escaping from reality for a bit.
I think what's so funny in a way, because I did something similar like that, but in the senior year of high school. I would check out movies from my local library and watch them and try to do my homework, my calculus homework at the same time. But really, I was kind of paying attention to the movie and practicing. I was doing all of that, you know. But what I find so wonderful about you is that you are a kind of person that when you get really excited about something, you really want to share it with the people that are closest to you. And I feel like I had this background of watching movies while doing homework. And then, of course, we were in a string quartet together. And I feel like you kind of took me under your wing. I was like, we're going to watch these movies together. And I was like, okay, I don't know what else to do. So I don't have any friends yet. So, okay. I feel like I watched a lot of different kinds of movies. I feel like I was learning about it at the same time as you. You were just a little bit farther ahead along in that progress.
I mean, I want to say I was like further ahead. I was in a different area of movies because I'm sure you have seen plenty of movies that I haven't
a lot
seen.
of chick flicks. Yeah,
but still, you know, no disrespect to those because
it's true.
My fair share of favorites in that genre as well. But yeah, you were mentioning like going to the library. It brought back memories of my summers. We would go to the library as kids and they'd always have a movie section, and that was one of my favorite things, to just go from first title to very last title each time I went to see what they had and what was new each visit, and picking 3 or 4 to watch for the next week or two, and then going back and doing it all over again. I don't know, it's something I miss about the whole like movie experience, is being able to see all these titles in front of you and being able to take your time looking through it, picking out each DVD and looking at the back and
the physical part of it.
Yeah, the physical part of it, because I don't know, it's different with streaming services.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like I just browse endlessly and mindlessly.
Yeah, exactly. No, and also, like, it's not all in one place. Like, even outside of a library, we used to have Blockbuster or Hollywood Video or something like that, where it was all in one place, right? Now it's just across all different platforms, and maybe you don't have a subscription of this, or, you know, so it's a different feel from where I feel like now we're old talking about this.
Yeah. But it's also harder to find some of those hidden gems, because even though they say they curate your homepage to what your interests are,
right,
I still have to like physically search for a title because it didn't come up on my feed.
Right. But I just remember sitting at Levy Library with you, and like, I still have never finished The Shining because we got too tired one night.
Oh no, we did?
I know. No, I've never seen the ending of that movie, and I know what happens. But like,
oh wow.
But anyway, next time you come visit, we're gonna have to finish the movie together.
Oh, for sure. I can't believe we got too tired to finish that.
But yeah, anyway, so when you were at USC, you started to explore more of these art films and things. Has that just been a continuous discovery, or since then, how has your journey in film and appreciation?
I mean, it's still one of my favorite things to do. The pandemic has kind of halted that, but I like going to the movie theater to see these movies in person. I just like the whole experience of like, you're going to this destination to have this time of your day like cut out for this activity, and going into the lobby and picking out which snacks you're gonna have. And I don't know, there's just like this childlike fun to it. It just like always harkens back to my childhood of like, oh, I'm doing this activity that like I used to love as a child and that I still do now. And just that anticipation of like, oh, I don't know what I'm about to get myself into with this movie. Because, you know, I prefer to go into the movie knowing as little as possible. It's just some of them I choose because I know I'm familiar with the director's work. And then some of them I choose just because there's a lot of buzz around them. And some of them I choose just because I want something for just pure entertainment. But yeah, you never know how the experience is going to be for you. So there's a little bit of a excitement in that as well. But I'm still learning. There's still a lot out there that I don't know. I feel like I used to be more like, oh, I could only really have respect for these sorts of films, like the art house films. But now, as I've matured more, it's really like, who cares? If you like it, you like it. You know, if you feel something from it, then
it's done its job.
Then it's done its job, and that's what's important to you. So I don't want to like judge people's tastes, because every taste is very subjective.
When you were talking about going and experiencing a movie in a movie theater, I had to connect it in my brain back to what it's like for an audience member, or for you walking into the Berlin Phil and seeing the conductor that you seeing Claudio Abbado. Because as you say, like sometimes you pick certain movies to watch based on the director. So like maybe that's the conductor of the orchestra.
Right.
It's like you really want to see this conductor. Or I mean, you didn't say this, but I think for some people they choose to watch a movie based on the actor that's acting in it because they really like their work. So that's similar to like a soloist performing Brahms' concerto or whatever.
Yep.
And I was just thinking how many micro connections there are from the experience of going to a movie theater like that, and with the essence of watching the movie in the pavilion of which the movie was created for. Like the sound, the size of the screen, like all of this. We watch movies on our phones these days. Like that's not even, you know what I mean? And it's similar to us watching a live concert virtually, which of course we had to do during the pandemic because there wasn't any other way of doing it. But I think we all can understand that that's not the most ideal way of watching a classical music concert. The most ideal way is going to a music hall, right? So there's this element of, as you're saying, the overall experience, the excitement that you felt as a kid. It all just kind of connected to me in the classical music realm as well.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of
Similarities,
connections that you can make. I liked how you compared the soloist to like the actor and a director to the conductor. That is a very like valid way of thinking about it.
I was wondering though, like, what is the composer if not the scriptwriter? But you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
that's the cinematographer. I don't know.
Cinematographer, script, screenwriter. I think a mix of those. Even the music composer too. I mean,
sure, of course.
It's such a important role in the movie. There are a lot of correlations between those, and I'm sure you can find with like other art forms, but music, especially like opera, those two can be very, very close. Closely. I mean, there's opera on film, so that's basically, you know, the same thing. When I go to see a movie, though, my life as a violist, I don't think necessarily goes into the theater with me. I'm just like there to experience this movie and to see what I come out of it with.
That reminded me of the first time I watched No Country for Old Men.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? Like, we went to see that in theaters. Coen Brothers film.
Yes.
And I remember walking in knowing, you telling me about the Coen Brothers and all their work, of course. I remember, you know, kind of being excited to see it. And I didn't expect to feel what I felt. I remember just feeling so drained. And I remember walking out of the theater and everyone was like, oh my God, is she okay? Because I just couldn't say anything because I was just so distraught after watching that movie. And I haven't seen it since. I probably should. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Yeah. And then but it definitely gave me an emotion that I wasn't expecting. And I'm not I think in the moment I was like, didn't necessarily want to feel that way, but I always remember it.
Those are the kind of experiences that get me into the theater, is the ones where you have like a physical reaction to it. Those are the most exciting for me. And even if it's a negative emotion, oftentimes a lot of people will take that as like, oh, well, I don't like this movie because I had this. But the important thing is to like delve deeper and ask yourself why you're feeling that way. What is making you feel this negative emotion? Because oftentimes the director is intentionally doing something that elicits that reaction from people.
That's very similar to a composer, though, right? Like, oftentimes we expect to walk out of a classical music concert being all happy and bubbly, but oftentimes it's dark.
Yeah,
and
it can be.
I think
very
that
dark.
scares people.
Yeah. That's part of the reason why I love movies, is because it helps me to learn new things about myself, but also to face fears or face things that I've not put much thought into, because I guess it goes back to fear again. I don't want to like reckon with that experience or that emotion or whatnot.
But sometimes it's a better way of tackling those inner demons from the side, like in an art form, right? I think that's where maybe because it's like the slow process of unearthing some of that.
Yeah. One film director that I really admire is Michael Haneke. He's this Austrian director, and his philosophy is that the movie shouldn't manipulate the viewer into feeling certain things, but should rather open it up to them to see like how they take the sort of situation that's being presented to them and let them decide for themselves, because he deals a lot with social and class and even race issues sometimes. And he doesn't want to like be like, oh, here's my stance on this issue. Instead, I'm going to show you what is the brutal truth of what is happening in the world and let you decide for yourself whether you think it's right or wrong. It made me appreciate that perspective, because after hearing about that, I was like, you know what? There are a lot of movies I had seen, and it's surprising to me how much of it is just like fed to us to be like, hey, you should be feeling like this about this.
Well, right. I mean, that's how film and stuff can get easily twisted into propaganda of some sort.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And I think what he's saying is teetering on this fine line of, I'm not trying to tell you what to believe. I'm just trying to show the honest truth of what's going on.
Right.
That's scary to think about.
Yeah. So
but you're right.
If you ever have the chance, check out one of his movies. Highly recommend.
Sure. Yeah, well, which do you recommend?
Oh boy, probably the movie that I was introduced to, Cachet. That movie is set in France, I believe. He has a lot of films that are in French. That one kind of centers around immigrants. And I can't like give away what happens because that's literally the climax of the movie, but it deals with class and race issues, and the climax was like a real eye-opener and shocker. So yeah, I would recommend starting there.
Sure.
His films are not for easy watching.
I see. So you gotta be at least slightly mentally prepare yourself before watching one of his films.
Right. You're not going there to have a fun, entertaining experience. It's more to learn about yourself.
Yeah. Are there any other directors that you would put on your list of people to keep note of?
Oh, keep note of. Well, I mean, there's the classics, the legends, but there's a lot that are coming out these days that are putting out some really exciting stuff. I mean, I had mentioned Ingmar Bergman. He's one of those very revered. There's this Italian director that I really loved getting to know in high school and college. I might mess up his name, but it was Pier Paolo Pasolini. And he was very prominent around the 70s. He was this openly gay Italian director, which is a very brave thing of him to do, because at the time, Catholicism was very prominent in Italy.
Right.
They had a lot of power, and he was a big critic of them as well. And having grown up Catholic myself, I really appreciated his strong stance on those sorts of issues, but he also does it with a bit of sardonic humor, which kind of helps alleviate the seriousness of the issue. But yeah, his films are very fun to watch. Anyway, I just really appreciated what he had to go through. He was actually assassinated because he was such a controversial figure. Yeah, he was assassinated and died. But his films, they have stood the test of time, and there are issues, it just goes to show, issues that still have yet to be totally solved. Yeah. But very charismatic guy, very colorful movies. going into Asia, there's just so much going out of there. I mean, Bong Joon-Ho has
blowing
become,
up.
Yeah, he's been blowing up. Basically a household name now. If you see some of his earlier stuff, recently I actually saw this movie called Memories of Murder, and it's fantastic. I mean, he's so good at suspense, but also is very like in tune with like the society that is around them, which is why I like going to see these movies, is because they have this unique perspective on the world around them, and it's kind of like you're getting the chance to see this perspective from someone that isn't yours. And there are times where you can relate to it. There are times where you see beauty in things that you didn't before. And then there are times where, you know, you have your disagreements. And that's what I love about it. It's just like it has so much to offer and so much to give. And whether you like it all or not, that's what it is. And you just have to decide for yourself.
Well, that's art, I suppose, at the end of the day, is always, right, it's up to the discretion of the viewer, what they find value in.
Right.
So overall, I mean, I know I asked the direct question of what your favorite directors are or who you would keep a note of in your brain, but I guess I want to ask this as a perspective thing. It seems like you generally are motivated by the director, and I want to suspect that it's because you appreciate the way that they tell the story. I mean, I guess I'm also saying this from my own bias of watching movies with you and watching different directors and things and seeing more of these foreign films, as you're saying, you know, immersing yourself in not just the environment, but the delicacy of which they tell stories. So one of which that we watched during the pandemic together, because we were pandemic buddies during lockdown, and you'd like try to sync up movies together and watch it on FaceTime. But one of the movies we watched together, which is on the Criterion Collection, is Tomboy. So Tomboy is about a 10-year-old gender non-conforming child who moves to a new neighborhood during the summer holiday and experiments with their gender presentation. The main character, born genetically female, experimenting with presenting male. Hence the title Tomboy.
Yeah, this director, who also is one of my favorites creating movies right now, Celine, not sure how to pronounce last name either, but Sciamma, a French director who's been putting out some incredible work these past few years. Tomboy included, most recently Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is another fantastic film. Anyway, yeah, Tomboy. I don't know if I remember your opinion on it, but
no, I
really
loved it.
Loved that film, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a wonderful film. And what I appreciated most is what I was trying to describe a second ago was the intricacy and the delicacy of that storytelling. Because that is such a, I mean, when someone goes through that period of life of self-identification and realization of who they truly are internally, that vulnerability can so easily be taken away or ruined in some way. Yeah. And I just remember watching...
And ruined by other people's ignorance.
Right. And so just the pureness and the way of how she told that story, it was just so beautiful to watch the innocence transform in some way. I feel like it's all about the storytelling with these directors. And I think that and the vision, right. And I think that that's what, as classical, I know you say you don't bring the violist to the film, but
I mean, it's kind of inevitable. I think, yes.
Yeah, I think subconsciously.
It is part of who I am. And the same with the film coming into my work life, like subconsciously, I'm sure there's, because I'm learning from both invaluable things about myself. But when I was saying that I don't bring work into the movie theater experience, I guess what I was trying to say is just I try to like go there with like a clean slate and then just take in what I'm seeing,
immerse it,
and see how I feel afterwards.
So you were also mentioning that in your further interest and diving deeper into cinema, it's actually opened up a wider range of film and TV.
And genres and styles, including lots of TV, which I haven't watched very much of reality TV, but I have been completely swept off my feet by RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yay! To the point where, frankly, of course, the moment that you discovered RuPaul's Drag Race, you immediately introduced it to me, and now it's completely in my spectrum of life, and I am inhaling everything of it.
Yes.
And I'm trying to bring more people to that world.
Yes. Spread the
And
love.
I know, I did speak about RuPaul's Drag Race with David Portillo on his episode, but I also felt as much as that was such a fun episode to record, I feel like I didn't do justice to drag queens and what they really symbolize and represent in the art form and what they do. I think I kind of fangirled a little bit. So,
oh, I mean, it's hard not.
It's so easy to do. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So, can I just ask you, what does drag mean to you?
Well, not being a drag artist myself, basically everything I first learned about drag was from that show. And to me, it just seems like a form of uninhibited self-expression, a way to break down gender stereotypes and binary stereotypes, and just a way to really like love yourself and to entertain people with it as well. Because drag is also a form of entertainment, but it can also at the same time be a political statement or some other kind of social statement. When I first knew about drag queens, I kind of ignored it, and that may have come with my sort of internalized homophobia of not accepting who I was and anything coming within the LGBT community. But in Austin, I had roommates who would watch the show religiously, and I'd catch snippets here and there. And when I moved to Milwaukee, I was living alone. I didn't really know very many people. I hadn't found my thing to do, so I decided to just delve into the show, and I became obsessed and fascinated. And it was just this sort of like religious experience or spiritual experience of like coming to terms with who I was, because so many of those queens had gone through similar struggles, and seeing that like even though they have this ridiculous makeup on and outfits and wigs and whatnot, they're not that much different than me, So I fell in love with the show and what they do, and what they do is like courageous, just to do something that is not considered a societal norm, and to go out there with so much confidence and charisma and
uniqueness.
Yes.
Nerve and talent.
Yes, exactly. It's not an easy thing to do, and I have so much respect for that.
Yeah, and I think that, thank goodness for RuPaul's Drag Race to open up that society, that what seemed to be the fringe society, into the mainstream. Before I even knew the show, we'd go to a couple drag shows, or maybe there's Rocky Horror Picture Show, right? I mean, that's maybe where a lot of that's where I first even ever saw any kind of, I know in the show they call it transvestite. I know that's not acceptable really anymore to call them, but things like that, where RuPaul brought this entire, again, fringe society into the mainstream. And it's been such a wonderful, beautiful experience watching some of the earliest shows to now, and how much that has accelerated the art form in itself too.
Yes.
And
every season you're just stunned. The level keeps getting higher.
Yeah, the level of just self-expression, acceptance. I mean, of course, the fashions, creativity, art, right? Yeah. And I think what was once thought of as clowns or something a little bit less unpolished is now completely the opposite. Where it's then that's where I think that it provides that space for so much possibility. And when you have a safe space like that, the limit is endless. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's what they're trying to show, is that like, if you don't put these constraints on society, like think of all the things that are possible.
Right.
As Alaska would like to say, anything is possible, but in her...
Right. I think can say...
In her vernacular.
Thank you for helping me clarify some of that, because again, it's like easy just to fangirl about it. So let's do a little fangirl corner.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite drag queen? Who's your favorite Snatch Game?
Well, one of the top ones is Sasha Velour.
Oh, yes.
She was one of the more reserved drag queens, but just you could tell in her concepts of fashion that there was so much meaning behind everything she did. And to this day, she's such a big advocate for everything in the queer culture and the queer community.
Can I interject a little small tidbit about her too?
Yeah.
So she's a bald queen, meaning that she is completely bald and rarely wears wigs to give off. So I think her rationale rationale, at least that she said on the show, was because her mother was going through chemo. And so in solidarity with her mother, she decided to go bald. And I think that's so beautiful. What a beautiful statement. And also so creative in the looks. Like, you don't need hair to be a woman, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's like her whole thing of being a gender queer person. It's just like, there are no visible lines. Being bald does not have to be masculine or feminine.
Right.
Or can be both at the same time. It's just a more elevated perspective on human sexuality and identity. But yes, the one time we all know of that she wore a wig was one of her most iconic moments on Drag Race, where she was...
I get so emotional, baby.
Having her one of her final lip syncs to win the crown, and she lifts that wig, and out of it fall all these rose petals, and the crowd just goes insane. Yeah. Oh, such an epic moment. Yeah. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched it yet, but seriously, season 9, right? Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Epic moment.
Yeah, so I would say easily she's one of my favorites.
Snatch Game?
Well,
the Snatch Game, as I should have mentioned in David's episode, is a spin-off of the Match Game, which I don't really know what the Match Game is, but the Snatch Game
I don't really either.
An opportunity for the contestants on RuPaul's Drag Race to do celebrity impersonation, and they take it to the nth degree, and it's high comedy, or high-ish comedy, you know, not, sometimes it's slapstick, sometimes, you know.
It depends on it's just, the celebrity
it's high
portray. Yeah, it's always an episode that everyone looks forward to.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of the queens, it's a make it or break
defining.
It. So what are some of my favorite Snatch Games? I mean, honestly, Ben de la Creme. Every time he did Snatch Game, I knew I was in for a treat. She is so witty and so quick with the comebacks and so clever and just so hilarious. Like when she did Maggie Smith, it was just it was awesome.
Yes. Who would think of such a thing?
She is a fierce queen. I was gonna say Ginger Minch, but
I was thinking that, yeah.
But honestly, it's only her Adele that I remember that I really like to go back to. It's like where they ask, like, so Adele, where do you come from? And she's like, my house. I don't know why. That one always cracks me up.
No, me too. Well, Ollie, I can talk to you about film and cinema for a lifetime. There's so many layers.
Barely scratched the surface.
But for the time being, can we move on to my final questions?
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice you would tell your younger self about entering and pursuing a music career?
I would tell him to own his confidence. I would tell him to not let any doubts or negativity to determine the choices that you make.
In alignment with RuPaul, the inner saboteur, right?
Right.
Don't let the inner saboteur direct what you do.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot harder than you had imagined, and it's not going to be as romanticized as you thought it was. There's a lot of political BS that goes on, so just remember at the core and always hold on to that, why you're doing what you're doing.
That's so important. Thank you for sharing that. I also think that sometimes the inner saboteur gets confused with the inner teacher. They seem like they're the same, but they're really different.
Right.
And part of separating that is the confidence that you mentioned, of trusting that the inner teacher is going to get you to the next level, that next place, and the inner saboteur is the insecurity.
Going to hold you back.
Yeah. I wish I knew that earlier in my life.
Yeah, likewise.
And it takes certain experiences, and it also takes just practice.
Exactly.
Self-love, and that's hard to teach, especially in a conservatory environment too, or a university conservatory. Yeah.
But that's why friends are important.
Yeah. Okay, my second question. As we enter a pseudo-post-pandemic world, I mean, are we really, a changing pandemic world, maybe I should say. What elements of your musical pandemic life would you want to continue, and what would you want to shed?
Well, with the pandemic, we were having shortened rehearsals and shortened programs, and I actually really preferred that, because sometimes I feel programs can be a bit tiresome in terms of how much music you're having the audience listen to. It takes energy to process it all, and when you have 2 hours, 2.5 hour concert, depending on what it is, you're asking a lot from your audience. And so, yeah, we were having these like 1 hour or less concerts, and I thought it was perfect. So I would like to see more of that personally. I guess one thing I would like to shed is like indifference that has been like manifested from overwhelming amount of information. Especially during the pandemic, I was just feeling so overwhelmed with everything going on with work and my musical life and with political climate, and it was just so much going on that by a certain point you became numb. And
yeah,
I've tried to teach myself and to continue to grow to be a better person within myself, but also in society. It's exhausting, but it's that indifference that is dangerous. So
yeah,
take things a step at a time, because it's always going to be overwhelming, but as long as you're putting in the little bit of work every day, that makes a difference.
Wow, that was so inspiring, Ollie. Oh my god, I did not expect that answer at all. But it's so important, and it's also so true that, especially during the pandemic, it was like, ah!
Yeah,
you know?
because we had the time to like pay attention
Right.
to everything. We weren't distracted. We didn't have our normal job lives.
Right. Well, thank you for that answer.
I don't know where it came from. Just
Are there any platforms or websites for listeners to learn more about you or any upcoming projects?
I mean, if you want to know more about what I do, can go to the Milwaukee Symphony's website. I always love to have friends of Patty come support the arts. Or you can just go to my favorite gay bars to know a little bit more about what my life is like.
Oh, yeah, we should shout out This Is It.
Oh, This Is It. Yeah, that is...
That's Trixie Mattel's bar now.
Yes, who's a very, very famous and successful drag queen who's built her own empire.
She's our age, too.
Yeah, and she co-owns this gay bar in Milwaukee, which is, I believe, the oldest gay bar in the state of Wisconsin. It was like her old stomping grounds before she made it big. And yeah, and she just wants to preserve the legacy of it, so she pitched in for half of it, ensuring its legacy, I guess. I didn't know if that was actually going to be on the podcast. I was kind of joking.
I didn't either. But of course, I mean, you know me, I'd be there right next to you if I could.
Yeah. Obviously, practice safety.
Yes.
When going indoors.
Yeah. Get vaccinated or wear a mask. And drink responsibly, too.
And drink responsibly, yes. And practice safe sex.
Okay.
And always know your status.
Yes! Okay. Okay, these are all great messages. Okay. And if you enjoyed listening, be sure to smash that subscribe button wherever you're tuning into this podcast. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts while you're at it. It doesn't need to be long. Your review will help others search for the podcast because of its crazy algorithms, and you'll make Sushi's day. And it's free. Make sure to share this podcast with your friends and family as well. If you want to level up, you can always become part of the Haydn Behind the Music Stand family by donating what you will on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Haydn Music Stand. Our social media handle for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is at Haydn Music Stand, and we'd love to hear from you at our email, haydnmusicstand@gmail.com. Didn't recognize a piece we discussed during the episode? No worries! There's a Spotify playlist with all the music discussed for your convenience. The link is in the description of each episode. Alejandro, I love you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Love you too, so Patty. You're the best.
No, you're the best. All right, and thanks for listening. Say bye, Sushi.